Testing, 1, 2. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? No? Okay. If you're saying no and you're acknowledging me, that's good. Hi, everybody. My name is Megan Costello. I'm actually, I'm a professor here at the College of IST, and I'm also somebody who heads up the entrepreneurship cluster here at the College of IST as well. I know I don't look like Allison Murphy. I'm not Allison Murphy. Unfortunately, Allison is out sick, and she wishes everybody well. But for today, I'm going to be filling in for the competition, and I'm going to be your faithful MC as we go along here. I'm really excited to be here. Just as a shameless plug for what we do in the entrepreneurship minor. Is we run an event that's known as the mHealth Challenge, actually in the fall. That's a part of my class that I teach, is IST 337, where we learned about technology for entrepreneurs. So if anybody's watching this, you're not an active participant in this, but you're like, wow, I really want to get involved with something like this. I would definitely recommend that you sign up for my class in the fall. If you're interested in the entrepreneurship minor as well, happy to talk with anybody who's interested in that. Like I said, IST has their own cluster of this, but there are many different participants from many different colleges throughout the university who are also part of this entrepreneurship minor. So it's really cool to be able to dive into these different topics. So the reason why we're all here today, the reason why everybody's kind of dressed up and ready to go, is because we are here for the final pitches of the IdeaMakers Challenge. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the IdeaMakers Challenge, basically here's the whole purpose that's kind of laid out here to kind of let you know what's going on here. Essentially what the purpose of this competition is for is to identify some sort of a problem and then to hook in with some sort of an interdisciplinary team that's going to work together on this problem for over the course of 2 months. And what happens here is they propose a solution where IT is this core component. And so basically what's happening over the course of these 2 months is these teams are going to work together and they come up with some really innovative ideas. And even though they're in the beginning stages of those ideas, they have really looked very deeply at value. We're looking at customers. We're looking at revenue models. I mean, we're digging very deep into these, these beginning ideas of things that are really innovative and really cool. So it's really exciting to have so many people in the house tonight to talk about this and to support everybody. And again, to have all of these participants here today is just really wonderful. So it's nice to have all of you here. So just so you kind of understand the process, of course, we have people who have been in this for a long time, since February essentially. But there are some of you who may not be familiar with how this IdeaMakers Challenge works overall. Essentially what's happening here is, tonight, like I said, is the finals. This is where it all comes down to, the winners in this competition. But in order to get here, there's a lot of different things that we have to do as a community, as people who are working together, in order to get to this final phase. So this is basically the 2-month process that the students go through. First, what happened was we have 17 cross-college teams that submitted applications to be considered to even be part of this competition. And of that, we had 10 teams that had been selected from those applicants. What happened from that point on was those 10 teams participated in what was known as the Expert Workshop at Happy Valley Launchbox, which is a great resource in our community. And essentially what happened here was they had experts that were able to kind of guide them through this process of coming up with these ideas, to working through some of their problems. And they had a lot of expertise in things like business, pitching, prototyping, and the law to really help them build out those ideas. From that point in time, when you had those 10 teams, after that happened, after they went through all of the discussion points, with all the people who specialize in all these different things, they then competed in what was known as a semi-final rocket pitch. And we had 2 members of the entrepreneurship community, Ann Hoag and David Norloff, who were available to listen to these things and to finally choose ultimately who was going to compete here today. So today, the people who are going to be presenting in this discussion, in this challenge, are the top 6 teams. And these 6 teams, moving forward from that pitch competition, were assigned mentors And now what's going to happen is they're going to compete in the finals tonight. So it's really exciting to see everybody kind of progress through this. It's been a long way, you know, there's a long road to get to this point, so we're very proud of all of the people here today who have been, you know, made it this far. So congratulations, just from a general standpoint, congratulations for getting here. Another thing that I wanted to kind of bring up is we have some wonderful judges that are here today who have volunteered their time to listen to all the great inventions that you've come up with, and to really listen to your pitches and to provide a lot of feedback. And from what I understand, these are 3 Penn Staters. Am I correct? Yep. So we've got some alums. You're in good hands tonight as you you listen to their advice. These people have gone really far in their careers, and they've done a wonderful job, you know, pushing out in the entrepreneurial field. So just so you know who we have here as our judges, we have Paul Horn, who's a national partner and sales executive at Microsoft. So if Paul, if you want to raise your hand or say hello, there we go. We have Naeem Hussein, who's the founder and CEO of Keen Home and a participant and winner of the well-known Shark Tank competition. Very exciting. You want to wave, say hi, yeah. And then Jason Cohen, who is the founder and CEO of Gastrograph. So you want to say hi? There you go. So thank you so much, guys, for coming in tonight. It's wonderful to see our alumni, you know, come in and participate in things like this. It really means a lot to have you here. So let's get into some information about our pitch format, because, of course, we want to know, how is this laid out? How is this going to work, right? So with this challenge, this is what we have to think about. Every single team, and we have 6 teams that are slotted for tonight, they are going to have 5 minutes to pitch their idea here. And then what's going to happen is, once that 5-minute pitch is over, they are going to have 5 minutes of question and answer with the judges panel over here. And I was told tonight that we do have a stop sign. Somebody's going to be holding a stop sign, so there we go, it's right there. And there's going to be also a 1-minute warning. So as you get down to that 1-minute warning, it's time to start thinking about wrapping things up and getting things kind of tied together. And same thing for the judges as well. It gets close to the end of the 5-minute point, they'll let you know, as far as timing goes, when things should be wrapped up a little bit. So without further ado, let's get started. So we're going to go first with our first team, HemoGo.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. Are you all ready?
HemoGo is a smartphone application that has the potential to disrupt the way a complete blood count, or a CBC, is done, much like at-home diabetes testing has. Bringing HemoGo to the market is a team of undergraduates composed of myself, Chevy Carbasi, majoring in biology,
James Frazier, senior, studying computer engineering.
Matt, junior, majoring biology.
And Steve Flanagan, junior, studying biology.
We also have a team of advisors that are guiding us to bring HemoGo to the market, notably an FDA advisory board that is composed of individuals who have gone through the 510(k) submission process, something that we have to go through. In the summer of 2012, I was taking care of my grandfather who's diagnosed with lung cancer, and I always have to take him for this test called a complete blood count, or a CBC. And I noticed it's time intensive from scheduling the appointment to getting the results back. It's inconvenient because my grandfather, who's having chemotherapy done, and was immunocompromised. I have to bring him to a clinic where there's even more germs. And lastly, it's expensive. To fix this problem, we came up with HemoGo, a smartphone application where users can have a CBC or a complete blood count done from their smartphone. Very simply, you prick your finger, you place a drop of blood onto our HemoGo test strips, you put the test strips and your smartphone into the HemoGo case, and within 30 seconds, our application will do the rest, providing you a complete blood count result, and we'll even send the results to your physician. Besides the test strips and the application, we have a case, and Matt will discuss more about the case.
So for us to get FDA approval, we need a case that would standardize the test. So inside the case, there's ball lenses and an LED that help us capture the blood. Right now, we're currently 3D printing the case and prototyping it, and for the case to work, we need the app to work, and James will be talking about the app.
Currently, we have a working iOS application that was developed using Xcode. However, we do plan on moving over to React Native, so we have a cross-platform Android application. Because of the nature of our business, we're going to be handling healthcare information. Because of this, we need to be HIPAA compliant. Our backend, we're using Amazon Web Services, which is a HIPAA compliant service. Additionally, in order to use the application, you need to authenticate into it using your fingerprint or a passcode. So using Matt's case, we'll be able to take a blood sample, and once the phone has that blood sample, we'll be able to upload it to the Amazon cloud where it is processed using machine learning. And after about 30 seconds, the CBC comes back, which you can see immediately on the bottom of the screen. Additionally, if you want to see your past CBCs, you can go into our Histories tab and compare your counts. And here's Chevy, who will talk about who will be using the application.
So the market potential for blood testing is huge. By 2024, it's expected to be about $198.4 billion. But a CBC is one of the most prescribed tests and has been increasing every year due to the aging population. We also have specific populations that will use this, all the way from chemotherapy patients to ALS or advanced life support patients in the ambulance, outpatient procedures. There are so many applications for this smartphone application. And Steve will now discuss two specific markets we're targeting: people going through chemotherapy, that's 1.6 million people annually, and cancer survivors, that is 15.4 million people in the United States.
So we were fortunate enough to conduct a survey consisting of both cancer patients and survivors. Two questions that caught our attention were, how often is blood drawn and how long for blood work results? Now, 40% of our surveyors said that their blood was drawn every week. That's 4 times a month, that's 48 times a year. This is a huge time commitment to anyone. Regarding our second question, for how long to wait for blood work results, 70% of our users said they waited 1 to 2 hours for results. Now, to you or me, this might not seem like a lot of time, but to a cancer patient waiting for good news versus bad news, this is a big time commitment. Now here's Chevy to talk about our revenue model.
So very simply, we plan on taking a subscription fee for people who are going to be using the application more than once a month. But for people who just want to check in, that's a one-time fee. So very simply, if you do a CBC the way it's done right now, on average, that's $100. So if you're doing CBC one time a month for 12 months, that's $1,200. If you use HemoGo, it'll only come out to $120. That saves hospitals money, saves insurance companies money, but most of all, it saves that patient time they should be spending with their family. So our current competition includes traditional places like Quest Diagnostics or LabCorp. These are expensive and time-intensive options. However, there's new things coming like Athelis and Core. These are plug-in devices that are more expensive than HemoGo, and they're not FDA approved. Our patent-pending technology is the most affordable and the fastest. So we actually started this in the May of 2017, and since then, we have an application working. We're prototyping the case, we're prototyping the strips, we're in the Summer Founders Program, we're an InQ finalist, and we hope to bring this to market soon. We're going to be starting our clinical trials this summer. Thank you.
Keep the mic.
What's your timetable for, I see you were going to submit to FDA a year from now?
Yeah, so we're actually going to bring on an FDA regulatory agent, a third-party reviewer, because it's accelerated if you work with someone who already has that connection. So we're in the IRB process right now, and we hope to actually start this summer because we'll have the case done, we'll have our strips done, and everything will be ready to go.
How do you view insurance coverage?
So insurance it's hard to get insurance reimbursements, but we've made it such a cheap alternative where when talking to these patients, they're willing to pay this $9.99 themselves if that means they can spend that time with their family. But we will look towards reimbursements, but that is something that we focus on once we get that FDA approval.
How much testing have you done on willingness to pay, and how did you get to the $9.99 number?
So we compared it with the methods that are available right now. So that is with our application. We also have to factor in the strips in the case. But we've had people tell us that they'd pay $70 for this if they could stay at home with their nephew or their kids. So, but we're using the $9.99 because we're also going to be making money off our test strips and the case.
I would look into maybe charging more.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a great presentation, guys. One of the questions I had, have you done any testing, and I apologize if I missed it, you guys are moving pretty fast with the, the error stats
So, yeah.
with regards to the blood work done in a lab versus done with your process?
So that's what we're going to be doing this summer. So far, we've been testing the application with our own blood. In the clinic, so we've been given some space graciously where we could do that. However, there's so much regulation that comes with this that we have to wait until the right moment because we don't want to do anything wrong because then that makes it longer to get this done. So we're trying to do it the right way, and the right way takes time.
Sure, makes total sense. And I agree with Naeem, by the way, on you're not charging enough from a subscription perspective. The upfront costs are great to cover some of your initial costs, but what's going to pay the bills is the subscription.
Thank you.
Yeah, there we go. Congrats on all your progress, guys. Great presentation. I'm interested in a little bit more specific. So you mentioned process using ML, machine learning, and so many applications for this smartphone application, right? But more specifically, why is machine learning required here, and what is it going to do, and how does that lead to a competitive advantage?
Well, it's image processing. So what his case is going to be able to do is capture a sample of blood using the camera. And using that there's too much, you can't do that locally on the phone because the CPU on a phone doesn't have enough computation power. So you got to upload it to the cloud, where you just use machine learning there, a computer vision algorithm that's confidential, and then that produces the CBC.
Also, so everything here has to be FDA approved from the case and the test strip. So that's a competitive advantage because no one's going to try to accumulate the database that we have, and they're going to try to get a case like FDA approved. So that's another.
The more data because it's a machine learning algorithm, the more data that we collect, the more and more accurate our tests will become.
So how do you solve the cold start problem? How do you start with no data?
Well, that's what we're working on. We can't get FDA approval without that.
Yeah, so that's what that's the whole point of the clinical trials. About half those samples are actually going to be used for training the model. However, we've been training it with our own samples, but now we need to diversify. Like we need to get blood samples from people who've had leukemia, anemia, iron deficiency, because that really creates a powerful database, and that's what we're going to be doing this summer.
Am I correct was I correct in hearing it's about 17 million is your existing kind of user target?
So our first target market, we're going to be focusing on people who this can help right away, and that is 15.4 million cancer survivors in the United States and 1.6 million people going through chemotherapy annually.
So that's 17 million, right? Talk to me about customer acquisition costs and how do you propose to get this solution out to them?
So that's something we're going to be looking towards more summer. Right now, we've been really focused on the development of the application, development of the case. We haven't looked at that number specifically. However, we know partnering with hospitals, we've spoken to a few hospitals, and this is the best way to go because they have that patient population we need. And if we get the physician's confidence, our customer acquisition costs will actually be really low. So they have that network of patients.
So two relevant things have been in the news recently. You have data privacy, which is suddenly a hot topic, and you have Theranos, which was a blood testing company.
Theranos said 30 tests from one drop of blood. Right. We're just trying to do one. Like
right. My question actually isn't about that. My question is, how are you going to deal with the go-to-market strategy when consumers now are thinking a lot about their data privacy and about prior blood testing companies?
Well, that's why we're using Amazon Web Services, because Amazon Web Services, some of their services are actually specifically HIPAA compliant, and we need to sign a business association agreement with them, which they will help us make sure that our data is protected. What else?
That answers your.
And additionally, we're also going to be using Epic,
when I said we can actually do APIs into the electronic medical record system, so once you do this test, it'll pop up on your physician's record, and that can be helped by them to improve the security. So.
Thank you. You killed it.
All right, so next up we have Team Glow Up, who we're going to call down to the front of the stage here. While they're setting up, I was just told that there's a really interesting announcement here. Naeem, who is one of our judges here today, he's actually going to be in Business Building Room 110 at 6:30 p.m. for a panel session. So if you're interested in dropping by, this is going to be something that's not to miss. So make sure you show up. All right. And now we'll hear from Team Glow Up. Hello. Check.
Are we going to share? We'll share.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Kessel Okorofo.
My name is Brooke Jin.
My name is Olivia Richards.
And my name is Maisha Islam.
Melissa Smith is a 26-year-old independent beautician who is currently looking for work. She'll love a more convenient channel to find work and provide her services.
Kate Jones is a 30-year-old meteorologist who is attending an awards ceremony later in the evening. Unfortunately, she can't leave work early and she has to pick her kids up from aftercare. But Kate would love a fast, convenient way to schedule with a stylist.
This untapped potential shows a connection, but with Glow Up, they can find exactly what meets their needs. Introducing Glow Up, the Airbnb for beauty. We bridge the gap between stylists and clients in our hope to build a community where we empower people of all backgrounds to come together to glow.
Our application serves as a platform to empower both men and women in the digital age of beauty. By leveraging information technology and critical machine learning components for our future application, we connect and match glowers and glowists, our customers and stylists, to be able to provide that service. Additionally, in order to best design Glow Up, we conducted an online survey and received over 100 responses. In those, we learned not only of our customer segments, but also a crucial pivot that we made in our business. First, we learned that over 90% of individuals interested in makeup applications were college students aged 17 to 22. Also, we learned a critical divide and roadblock from many working professionals and busy moms over the age of 22 being time and location flexibility. So we designed Glow Up for the stylist to come right to them.
We also conducted 35 interviews with stylists, some being employed in salons, others being independent contractors, and even students in cosmetology schools. And we found that the biggest concern that independent contractors had were that clients were not paying them on time. So, how big is this market? We expect to see a 2.8% growth in the nail and salon industry over the next several years. That's from $58.4 billion to $63.8 billion. And additionally, with the growth in revenue, we expect to see a 13% increase in employment. Currently, 1 in 3 people who are licensed are independent contractors in beautician. Therefore, we expect to see this number grow with the industry growing. Hence, we define this as untapped potential.
Here on the first screen, you can see what a customer will see when they're beginning their search for a stylist. There are filters that they can use to pick the type of stylist they want, their preferred time and date for the appointment.
Glowists also have featured profiles for which glowers or clients can view their portfolios and specialties while also browsing user reviews. Aside from the connecting points of the app that we offer in performing services, we also have a feature where users, clients, and stylists alike can leave their reviews and ratings about their experiences.
Similar to many rideshare companies, we plan to operate with an 80-20 revenue model. Additionally, our glowists, our stylists, because they have various levels of experience and skill sets, we will operate on a tiered system that they will offer their services. In conducting a lot of research, we learned of one major competitor in the market, being Glam Squad. They operate only in New York City and Los Angeles. They just started in 2014, and their only sales that are public right now in 2014 were $8 million. But since then, they have received over $24 million in capital. The difference between us and Glam Squad is that we plan to appeal to all in scope across the nation as opposed to these two major cities. Additionally, we hope to offer diversity in services and people.
So if we take Melissa, she is a tier 1 glowist. She performs the lowest package of our service, which is $30. She does it 3 times a day for an entire year. She can make over $24 an hour. In addition to that, using the 2080 models, we can make $6,480 yearly off of just this one service provider.
Through GlowUp, we plan to empower all people and to connect stylists such as Melissa with clients such as Kate. We wanted to create a space to build community and diversity and specialization. By bridging this gap in beauty, we hope to build a better world where we can encourage our glowists and our glowers to explore in all their potential and to redefine beauty limits. Thank you. We will now stand for any questions.
Good job, thank you. So you're building a two-sided marketplace here. Talk to me about customer acquisition costs and how you think about sort of reaching out for both sides of that marketplace, and also talk to me about initial go-to-market segments of the country and kind of test markets.
Absolutely. So in our Happy Valley Launchbox expert workshop, we talked a lot about how we were going to, begin. Where do you start? But in discussing a lot with potential customers and interviews, we conducted over 35 interviews touching both sides of our two-sided business, being our customers and our stylists. And in chatting with various customers, from the 65-year-old woman to the 17-year-old high school senior who wants makeup done for a prom, and a professor here whose daughter competes in competitive cheerleading, and they have to have perfect makeup. We wanted to start a bit smaller scale in suburbs and areas even such as, say, college, where we could start with the high school prom season, where there are large groups of people interested in beauty services, not only makeup but hair as well, and test the market in that sense. In regards to the customer acquisition costs, I feel as though not only do we have customers being our glowers, but we have customers as our stylists as well. While they will be independent contractors, we will have to acquire them. And Maisha talked with over 35 people coming out of beauty school and soon graduates, and that would be a fantastic place to start, in that those individuals could become our glowists as a full-time job or even as a side job. In acquiring the customers, while we don't have exact numbers for the cost of customer acquisition, we have done a lot in regards to our marketing plan, which we want to leverage the large amount of followers that beauty vloggers have. By reaching out to those individuals and then becoming partners with us, we plan to leverage that relationship and their reach in being able to start beyond just our initial hopes.
There we go. Hey, a great job as well. So I'm also on the two-sided marketplace questions. I'm interested in what's going to make Glowist sticky, right? What's going to keep those individuals, both the stylists or the users of each side of the marketplace, coming back? So one of the problems that we've seen in other two-sided marketplaces is if we hire someone like a handy and they come and they clean your house and you like them, you can then make a deal off the app, right? What's going to TaskRabbit was another problem. So what's going to keep users on your platform?
So first of all, we can talk about this for hours. Secondly, this is actually a three-sided marketplace, but we only introduced a two-sidedness because of time constraint. The third side, we have our partnered brands. So something that independent contractors don't have right now is contracts with name brands such as Tarte Cosmetics or Sephora brands.
Cosmetics, toothpaste.
Yeah. So using the rating system that we have on our app. With the number of services Melissa conducted, she does 3 $30 services. Her rating is 4.85. She can get a brand deal if the brand likes her. Apparently she has influence, brand look for influence, so we plan on partnering with brands. Melissa can get a brand deal, and in return, she can get discounts on supplies. She
often gives discounts to her customers as well.
Okay.
With that, similar to other gig economy services such as Instacart, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but their top 25 their top 25% of employees by region then are offered bonuses each week, so we'd hope to provide that. And then they would also go up the tier system as they have more experience with us.
Yeah, you'll have to hit scale before you can take advantage of that. One quick question, and I think we have a minute left. It troubled me a little bit that Glam Squad has raised $25 million, and they've been in 2 markets, LA and New York, and you said that your approach was an appeal to all, roll out wider. That's ambitious. Talk to me quickly about why you think they chose to go to those markets and have not scaled that quickly, and how you think you can beat them in that sense.
I think in that sense, because we plan to focus more on the diversity of not only our employees, but the service that we offer, we feel as though the difference and why we will be able to scale faster is that there's a difference between the $85 blowout and a young stylist who is being empowered by this service and able to then transition into a new role. There will be a larger scale of individuals, different people, and not folks who are paying $200 to get a haircut, and instead that busy mom who can't afford to pay for a babysitter and a haircut. So we'll be able to appeal to different kinds of customers.
In addition to that, we're also competing with salons. So salons here in State College, it's an average of $37 for a haircut. We are offering $30 haircuts. Why is that? Salons have to pay the overhead costs. They have to pay for products. They have to pay for supplies. While we don't have to pay for any of that. We are just the brokers connecting people.
Thank you.
Perfect. Hey, thanks. I think we're out of time, but really appreciate it. Nice job.
Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Team Glow Up. And we are now going to listen to Team Maadi Babu.
Yeah, I'll send you those. I think that's sorry. There. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if this is on or not. You got it. Just make sure this is on. It works. Yeah, that would be good.
Just to kind of add to this, the judges have to make a few notes here. So when they're ready, they'll point at you, and then you can get started,
Sounds
okay?
good. Okay. Yeah. Spot on. Well, yeah. Okay. "12 million people contract malaria every year just in Uganda. malaria is incredibly deadly. 70% of cases that make it to the hospital end in a death. That being said, it's incredibly easy to treat if you get it tested early. But 30% of Ugandans never get tested for the malaria they contract. We are Maadi Babu, and we make malaria testing that is fast, accurate, safe, and painless. So why aren't people getting tested? Let's take the case of our friend Peter here. He's a nurse in Uganda, and every day he comes to work, and he has a long line of people that want to get tested for malaria, but he has inadequate supplies to give everyone an effective test. If everyone could make it to a central hospital, he could give a complicated and expensive microscope test, but that could take up to an hour a person, and the hospital is already pretty far away from where people live. Alternatively, he could distribute test kits at a local clinic, but these are one-use items, and that makes them pretty expensive. Also, they're not that accurate. Both methods also require a painful blood sample in a part of the world that is still struggling with blood-borne illnesses. The people of Uganda and the rest of sub-Saharan Africa need a malaria test that works better for them. And people like Peter are the key users for that better method. They're the trusted community members that can validate and scale a new method if they got one, and they're also the influencers that can convince NGO leaders and government officials to buy a test. They are clamoring for a method to do their job better, and that method is the Maadi Babu digital malaria scanner. We're working with a team in Kampala, Uganda that have developed an amazing sensor that reads your finger and using magnetic resonance determines your malaria status in just 2 minutes. It provides equivalent accuracy to current methods, and it does not require a blood sample.
Now, because it is a digital sensor, there are several IT advantages to our device. One is the user interface. So unlike the test strips or microscopes, our device provides clear instructions and results right on the screen. It also allows to adapt to the language of the user. The second is data storage. So information such as age, location, and history of other diseases can all be logged on our device. These become valuable resources as demand for data in the research community grows. The third is corrective machine learning. So because data can be stored, when a neural network is implemented, false positives and false negatives can be identified and corrected. In turn, this will speed up our time to market, as well as help improve our device over time. With these IT capabilities, Maadi Babu is exactly the device we need to improve testing in sub-Saharan Africa. We have now walked into a meeting between Peter, a hospital executive, and a researcher. The purchasing director at this hospital has purchased the scanner for a one-time fee of less than $200. This may allow them to eliminate testing fee for patients altogether. Also, a key aspect of the Maadi Babu device is because data can be stored, it incentivizes researchers to connect with clinics. This forms a mutually beneficial relationship that provides the clinics with financial independence, as well as the researchers with robust data. Another relationship comes between us at Maadi Babu and nurses like Peter. Because of the digital nature of this device, we are able to stay connected to the user, adapting features as we evolve and learn how to improve and scale the functionality over time. Our solution provides a profitable model that is both sustainable and scalable for the future, and an implemented minimum viable project will be market ready in less than 2 years. An unfair advantage we have is that our co-development partners in Uganda own the underlying intellectual property, and they are only 4 months away from beginning clinical trials. They struggled with finding a way to fit the technology into the device, but with us, our collaboration has yielded a unique and viable scanner. Maadi Babu's non-invasive, accurate, and fast test is the best on the ground.
So parts of our team are headed to Kenya and Uganda this summer to test the user interface with nurses at St. Mary's Hospital and the mobile testing NGO Healing Faith Uganda. The IdeaMakers prize will be absolutely crucial in helping us take that important step forward. Every year, millions of people die from malaria. 90% of them are children. Widely available testing is a key factor in bringing that number to zero. We are Maadi Babu, and we make malaria testing that is fast, accurate, safe, and painless.
All right. Hey, great presentation.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time on this. And this is game-changing technology. So kudos to you for doing this and you know, bringing the support that's needed in places that don't have it. So one of the questions I had, so you mentioned the cost of the device that you showed on the screen is $200. But you also mentioned, so I'm curious about concerns around infrastructure support and availability of that particular device, whether it's power, network, anything that's needed to operate it. You mentioned machine learning on there. How are you going to leverage that? You know, like that device, $200 seems really low to me, although it's probably a pretty hefty sum for someone in a remote village to pay. But I'm curious to understand a little bit more about the device itself, you know, how you're going to be ensuring that there's usability in a very remote area, if that is the vision behind it, and then kind of what goes into the cost.
So one of the really nice things about, you know, continued use is because it's a digital device, firmware and software is always something we can work with. And because data acquisition is such a big part of this, a regular part of using it is going to be plugging it into a computer. So getting that update to people using it is going to be incredibly easy comparatively. The development team have found a battery that they really, really like. It's easily field changeable. It lasts like 8 hours, so you can recharge it at night. You could leave it plugged in if you wanted to, but it can travel. It can work for a full medical day. It keeps people running. Anything else we can kind of enumerate for that?
No, very helpful. Yeah, I think it was just understand networks. I know, you know, for example, Kenya, for example, has a very incredible cellular network, right? And so tapping into that, I think, would definitely be something that would be beneficial. If that's something that's built into the device, you've got a leg up on anyone that's coming to market with that. So,
Great job. MVP in less than 2 years. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then what's the timetable to actually get to market?
So they are about 4 months out from beginning the final stage of clinical trials. So there's 2 big administrative bodies in Uganda where they're currently rolling it out. They totally passed the first one, you know, flying colors, and they're full steam ahead. They have IRB getting approved in the next 2 weeks for the next round, then that's a couple months, and then it's completely safe to use according to medical law in Uganda. From there, our MVP is easy to throw together. We have the element of the scanner, a couple user interface pieces, the battery, and moving forward from that, we have a couple scaling vectors we want to work with. Once we're sure that this version works, we can scale geographically, so spread it out from Kenya. There's a lot of similar places that, you know, need a scanner. We can work with like form as a vector, so if you have a higher population density, make it a kiosk instead or something like that. And then we can also work with them. They're focusing right now on being very, very good at malaria, but a lot of this technology is easily applicable to other blood diseases like sickle cell or different types of anemia. So it's, you know, we can build from there very easily.
I was going to make a bad go viral joke, but I'm not going to go there. One quick question about the community evangelists. How do you sort of get the word out to them? How do you train them? How do you ensure that they're trained properly? And then the one thing I haven't heard mentioned quite yet is security around privacy, et cetera.
So we are definitely keeping a close eye on how data would be stored. We're still in the early stages, but the way we have it set up right now, it would be completely anonymous data, just, you know, what your status was this time, roughly how old you are. And we will, of course, you know, keep that as private as possible. It's already anonymous, but then that would be stored on the internal memory of the device. The device would be watched by a healthcare clinician, you know, running the machine the whole day, and then that would be securely linked up to whatever the computer is for sharing the data.
So in your revenue model, I didn't hear anything about reoccurring revenue.
So the nice thing about this is they won't need to charge for the test, so that free testing is a big part of new client acquisition. The sale of the data to researchers is going to be the big thing for, you know, paying for itself. A single batch could probably pay for the $200 upfront cost easily. It depends on, you know, where the device is being used and the quality of what they've jotted down, but that would be the main way to keep bringing in new money.
And so you mentioned machine learning. Is the idea behind it that machine learning would be the result of the algorithms that you develop would be part of what you sell, or?
That would probably be part of the software. So they already have a big data pool of results
and then what the correct result should have been. So they have a good starting seed for writing that algorithm. So we can start working on that, and then that would probably be part of a software patch for data analysis at the end of the road. That's not as essential for running the machine day to day. We would then take that information and run it into a software patch later.
Quickly on market size?
Mm-hmm. So definitely that key demographic of 12 million people in Uganda is the first role. It's not uncommon to get malaria 5 to 7 times a year if you've made it to adulthood, so that's recurring regularly, and then from there, basically the whole sub-Saharan population is a viable, marketplace. Also, people traveling could be a potential future market. We're not focused on that right now, but picking up one of these on your way out if you are hosting a retreat or something would be very doable. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, while the judges are writing a few notes, we're going to ask the team Explore AR. Is that how you pronounce it, or is it Explore R? Explore R, to come down and get set up. When the judges are ready, they'll flag you on, and then you can start, okay?
You know how to put this on? Stick it in your pocket. This right here. Oh, wait, I'll put this right here.
All right. So, is this one? All right.
So clip it.
All right. Yeah, we could all stay here. Yeah.
I got the intro.
You got the intro?
Hello. So hello, we are Explore AR. We're looking to make a virtual and augmented reality game for museums. My name's Ryan Fang, and I'm an IST junior.
I'm Adlan. I'm a IST junior.
I'm Andrew. I'm an anthropology sophomore.
Okay. So there are some trends going on with attendance rates at museums. Young people have the lowest attendance rate, and their rates decrease 3% every year. Furthermore, a lot of museums are investing into the digital platforms that are emerging and trying to offer digital experiences in congruence with their museum. So this breeds a lot of opportunity. Right now, year-on-year revenue for smartphone games is increasing. Right now, it's projected to reach 15 billion by 2020, 53 billion by 2020. And furthermore, there's not a game that has replaced Pokemon Go yet. We would be sort of the first game to come into that space with augmented reality. And there's no other service that provides museums with these games and lets them have their space featured in their games. So we would be the first. So the customer segments we are targeting are young people with smartphones from high school through college. Not necessarily people who are interested in museums, but people who are interested in these sorts of augmented reality experiences. We're also targeting museum operators and museum operators who are looking to have more people attend their museums.
So our solution is we're trying to create a mixed reality game platform. So our goal is to create a demonstrated gaming platform where demonstrate a public learning experience, and also we're trying to create an experience where users and museums could be more engaged with each other. In this game, users could explore artifacts in mixed reality, which can be both inside and outside the museum. And it also encourages collaboration between users, and also it features active learning through exploration. So these artifacts come in fragments. You have to collaborate with each other to complete an artifact, and then you could use them to complete your gallery and encyclopedia. And this game also works as a platform for a crowdsourcing. So if museums don't have any, if they have lesser known knowledge about an artifact, they could contribute some knowledge about it. So the role of IT in this project is we're going to build this application using an IDE called Unity. and we're going to use a platform called AR Core for augmented reality. We will use Google Maps to map out geospatial locations, and we will store them with a Firebase to store a database about the artifacts. And the last one is a Shopify API, where we could reward users with personalized museum collections.
So,
Souvenirs.
for the initial development process, we will be reliant on investment as well as grants from museums until we establish a large enough player base. Once that occurs, our main source of revenue will come through in-app purchases. These will be mainly focused around in-game items such as artifact restorations and enabling players to connect over distances, even if they're not exactly at a museum. Furthermore, we are a unique product. There is no other company that is trying to make something that we are. However, we will have to demonstrate to museums that what we are making is indeed better than any independent product that they can come up with. As we believe that this is possible because we are combining a mixture of education and interactive activity in order to engage any potential learners.
So there's growing incubator and VC interest in museum-related technology. In fact, I just spoke earlier today with someone who works with the government in New York, and they just put out some funding for art and cultural-related software and technology.
All right, so these are our partners. We have contacted 3 museums in Penn State and 2 big museums such as the Smithsonian and the AMNH, and they have expressed interest in this. And also, we went to GDC last week, and then we contacted Unity and Google, who are responsible in creating all of the SDKs, and we have a lot of interest from them as well, so they could help creating the application. And the last one is the potential funding partners, which is Google Ventures, venture capitals like Google Ventures, and also big companies that specialize in history and science media, such as Discovery Channel or Nat Geo for initial funding.
So come with us as we make Explore AR.
So talk to us a little bit more about the competitive advantage, right? Because it's not just that there's no other companies making AR games or AR utilities for museums. It's that AR is a growing field. There's going to be multiple headsets. You're going to need to have some competitive advantage, some ability to deploy this, some ability to get users, and it has to be better than other games. You can play Pokemon Go in a museum, right? So what is, beyond that no one else is focusing on museums, what's the competitive advantage?
So yeah, this platform is different from the other platforms that museums have created because there's actually, from this quote, which is quoted on Smithsonian's article, that they've created like a 3D viewer of a 3D model of an artifact, and then they don't see it like very significant. So in our platform, it allows like multiple museums to upload their 3D artifacts, and then they could use more like it's like a learning experience.
Right.
It's an active learning experience.
But that didn't answer the real question, right? What's going to keep users using this platform with museums or in museums or around museums versus playing any other game that they could play with or without AR on their phones?
So our game is specifically for this museum. We have content related to the museum, and it is there with the purpose to engage the visitors of there. Those other games, such as Pokemon Go, they are not specific to this museum. It's not tailored to what content they have in the museum or art pieces. So that's the sort of competitive advantage we offer. And furthermore, like what Adlan said, there isn't another service that is building AR games specifically for museums, and it's a very niche, like customer where we have to design it specifically so that kids aren't running around and knocking things over and other special cases like that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. And you mentioned earlier about your target demo that not necessarily people interested in museums, and that's, if I was a curator, I'd be a little bit troubled by that. A, going back to the stickiness, are they just going to come get the cheap thrill and have great fun for an hour trampling through this museum and then leave and not come back. And how do you get them, people who, like you said, are not necessarily really interested in museums, how do you get them to potentially be a recurring customer, to get a recurring revenue potentially?
Okay, so our game is still a game at the end of the day, and this game will allow you to win points, compare it with your friends. That'll be the sort of attracting element, especially with people not interested in museums in particular, because just recently Google's Arts and Culture got virally popular for the face comparison to a museum artifact. The people who are using it, they weren't necessarily interested in going to these museums or seeing it, but they played this game and they were engaged with it and they share it with their friends, and it grew viral in its popularity.
And also, if the users complete a collection from a museum, they could get a personalized souvenir or reward for that. So,
if I may add something, I've worked in 2 museums so far, and the biggest thing people have said to me as they're leaving is they didn't know that it even existed. They didn't know that the museum was there. They didn't know what was in there. And so I think that simply getting people through the door is more than enough incentive for any curator, because you'll be surprised who may actually find they have an interest in the artifacts.
So one question I've got is around your intellectual property as it relates to the museum and how that overlaps with the museum, as well as how you maintain the foothold as the go-to app for gaming or whatever it is at that particular museum. Like you mentioned Smithsonian, Palmer, I'm sure Palmer would be on board with that kind of stuff. It's cool and interesting and new. But how would you grow your museum base, and how would you maintain the presence as the go-to app for that museum?
Okay, so right now we're focusing on the biggest museums such as Smithsonian and the Metropolitan New York. They have lots of funding for technology like this, and once we get established and well-known with their customers, then we can branch out with smaller museums. Intellectual property-wise, we'll be working with the museums. This is something they can feature within their advertising materials, within their space. We're not claiming property over the artifact pieces. We just want to help them get more people engaged, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
I think we have like 20 seconds. Did you give us numbers on your revenue model, or did I miss it?
Okay.
Like how much you get, what your revenue model is like, how much you're charging, and what percentage is recurring?
From museums or from in-app purchases?
From museums.
So museums would, since we'd be focused on primarily large museums, they would be, museums of different sizes have different amounts of grant money that they put towards different projects. For example, the Smithsonian, Nick Raposi, I believe his name was, who is the director of scanning operations at the museum, has, can't remember the exact numbers, somewhere in the order of $2 million with which to work on digitizing part of the collection, which would be money that could be granted to us via grant. However, an alternative model would be charging a fee, revenue share.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to call to the stage Kajenzi. And as I've mentioned to the other teams before, as the judges write a few notes, you can get ready, you can get set up, and when they're ready for you, they'll let you know. They'll give you a thumbs up. All right, thank you.
Test.
Two-thirds of the world's medical facilities lack the basic supplies that their patients need. The reason for this? Medical supply chains are too complex and expensive. Even if they do have some of the supplies, 40% of equipment is non-functional in rural healthcare facilities, although most is just lying in need of spare parts that will never come. Much of this derelict equipment was donated and is beyond its design service life. The spare parts and consumables needed to repair are rarely available. Even if available, again, supply chains are too complex and expensive, especially for rural healthcare facilities. The result is hospital graveyards of unusable medical equipment and rural healthcare facilities across the developing world that are not able to provide their communities with the care they are supposed to. Samuel is a local tomato farmer in Kisumu, a town in western Kenya. He works long hours to provide for a family of 7. He awakens one morning with flu-like symptoms and spends the better part of the day traveling to a local clinic with hopes of getting tested for malaria. The clinic informs him they cannot administer the tests because of a broken microscope, specifically a broken aperture adjustment knob. This is a very common problem. There is absolutely nothing that Samuel or any of the other patients can do except for either A, wait for 3 weeks for a part to hopefully get in, or B, spend days traveling to the next best clinic. If only there was a way to get medical facilities the equipment they need fast. We are Kajenzi, and we make a turnkey 3D printing solution for rural medical facilities. Our solutions give appropriate 3D printing systems to low resource communities in an inexpensive and simple to use package. Kajenzi is a social venture that seeks to ease complex and costly supply chains like those seen in Eastern Africa. 3D printers exist, but the problem is they require computer-aided design and repairs, and unfortunately, in a low-resource setting, these are not appropriate. The Kajenzi 3D printing system connects healthcare facilities that have a need for parts with local entrepreneurs who operate our system to make the parts for them as well as other healthcare facilities. We also provide them a simple-to-use interface as well as a library of prepackaged parts that are ready to print.
Remember Samuel and the broken microscope? Well, this actually happened. This was a real problem that we had to deal with. Kajenzi was able to come in, design, and print a replacement microscope adjustment knob overnight for just 4 cents. And just like that, we had an entire wall of $1,000 microscopes that were functional again. During our phase 1 of testing, we were able to deal and solve dozens of similar problems, and now hospitals are yearning for our service, our full-time service. Kajenzi enables the localized manufacturing of medical equipment, replacement parts, non-invasive medical devices, and other healthcare items. And this allows the circumvention of these slow and inefficient supply chains that Luke talked about earlier. Our system includes an intuitive Android application, which allows users to access our prepackaged database of pre-designed parts. And from this app, they can print to wireless printers. They can print to printers wirelessly via Bluetooth. What makes Kajenzi unique, however, is that 3 of the biggest hurdles that most users of 3D printers have to face are eliminated by our system. Firstly, our printers are locally sourced in Kenya, which means they're easy to maintain and any problems can be solved quickly. Secondly, they don't require a computer to use or operate, which brings down the cost of the use of our entire system. And thirdly, it can be operated without any technical expertise about 3D printing or computer-aided design. And this makes it very appropriate for the region that we're dealing with. Here we have a prototype of our current application. On the left, you can see the online database of parts that we've prepackaged and designed for the users. And on the right, a user is able to pick an item and print it wirelessly via Bluetooth as required. Kajenzi is looking forward to making this app very intuitive, again, to make sure that no technical expertise is required. And this is a big part of the testing we're planning on doing in Kenya this summer. Because of this, we're able to bring 3D printing to a whole new world, to a whole new population, and enable them to solve whole new problems.
The Kajenzi system will be marketed towards entrepreneurs in Kisumu who will make parts for rural clinics and hospitals. Hospitals in this network will now have a reliable supply chain that reacts to their needs. This enables them to care for their patients more effectively and efficiently. In return for providing the system that links these healthcare facilities with the entrepreneurs, Kajenzi will take a portion of the fees that the hospitals give to the entrepreneurs. Keeping in mind that these 3D printed parts will often cost 90% less than they would traditionally. Our team is headed back in May for a summer of full system full system and application testing in Kisumu, and another round of testing before the minimum viable launch button is pressed. We are Kajenzi, and our 3D printer systems allow for medical parts to be procured at a fraction of the time, cost, and upend the complex supply chains within the region. Thank you.
Great work, guys. So my questions are actually starting on the printer. So 3D printers frequently require post-printing finishing, either sanding, removing of burrs, removing of sharp edges. So I'm curious about what the limitations are around the printer, who makes the printer, if it's a custom printer, proprietary printer, how high resolution it is in its ability to print, like per square inch or per millimeter, and the limitation on materials. Most printers only have a single head. Even the ones that have double heads, you have trouble getting materials to meld together. So obviously this couldn't print something like a new lens out of glass. So I'm curious about what the printer can do and how much of it is proprietary.
So we've already created our own 3D printers to interact with the application that we've been developing. So these 3D printers that we made, it's actually right there. We brought it over to Kenya already. So it only works with PLA as of right now, and it has a nozzle size of 0.4 millimeters. So this printer, right now, obviously only PLA. We're trying to expand to other things. There's no heated beds for this printer available right now because all of these additional things increase the cost of these printers. And we are trying to make this as locally sourced as possible because you're not going to have all of these other components of 3D printers just sitting around available in these developing countries. So this printer is as basically just the bare bones of what you can get and just to make the easiest parts that are available.
That photo should have been much earlier in this presentation. That's awesome.
Just to add to that real quick, so we actually already have a list that we're working on developing the full designs for of over 200 parts from health clinics in Kenya that would all work with our printer directly.
So you're gonna like make your own Thingiverse for healthcare, right? That could be like a whole business in and of itself, but it's really hard, obviously. How are you incentivizing the people to make the designs for these parts? And because that's a rabbit hole, right? That, you know, if a random piece of a microscope breaks, you'll have to either hope that it's already designed, or you have to incentivize someone to design it fairly quickly. And those costs seem crazy low. Are those like actual vetted costs? That's really good.
So as of now, we have a team that's just focused on making our kind of initial library of parts so we can have that to start off with. Beyond that, we will have a request system, obviously when a new repair needs to happen or something of the sort, that will get paired with just a team of engineers that we're working on developing here in the US. So we're looking at kind of humanitarian engineering agencies, first of all, starting locally with Engineers Without Borders here at Penn State. So that's how we're going to approach it for now. Down the road, there might be some funding involved for them depending on how complex the design is.
Yeah, so a great presentation. One of the questions I've got is kind of an interesting question. Help me understand the supply chain. So you're essentially, you're going to grab the parts, put them into a database that's accessible via an entrepreneur, someone who's kind of a small business owner in Kenya, who will then be the person responsible for printing the parts and distributing them accordingly. How does that still fulfill the need of the remote, the remote aspect of it, right, where they could be days away from a medical facility?
Okay, so yeah, there's a couple of different kind of end users that we're approaching here. So our system will be sold to an entrepreneur in a rural area, which is a network that we're already working on developing. They'll get our printer and they'll get access to our library.
How much are you selling it for to them?
As of our printer cost right now is between $200 and $400, and that should be a one-time cost, and then we will take a portion of each of the pieces that are printed. So then the health clinics and hospitals will get access to an ordering system in which they can order parts and be connected to their local entrepreneur who will fulfill that order and deliver those parts to them.
How do they get the refills for the plastic?
So that's obviously like a big issue. One thing that we have been looking into is there are different other organizations that are trying to use recycled plastic and convert recycled plastic in the developing world into PLA filament. So that's something that we hope to collaborate with in the future. But as of right now, we've just been bringing the PLA, obviously, to them as we're in the early stages of this project.
And what are the laws around actually printing medical equipment? Can anyone print anything, or do certain items need to be licensed and verified? Like the umbilical clamp, I can imagine that needs to be approved by someone.
So right now, we've been proactively collaborating with Penn State's law department. All of the parts that we have printed already, that are already available for printing, have already been checked off and are good to go. But in the future, if any part goes through the request system, we will try our best and locate the manufacturer and try and collaborate with the manufacturer to make sure there's no IP violations or anything like that. And then we're also working with the Kisumu Ministry of Health, or basically the local health services, to ensure that all of our parts are approved and have been tested beforehand, so that way it's safe to use.
That's fine.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
And then finally, we have our last team of the night, and that is Box It. So Box It, while you're coming down, just one more reminder, the judges are taking down a few notes. When they're ready, they'll let you know, and you can get started. Thanks, guys.
Just put it here. Is this on?
Hello.
Oh. Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rohan Soni, and I'm a sophomore majoring in industrial engineering.
And my name is Ishita. I'm a sophomore majoring in management information systems. One of our colleagues, Karthik, is currently studying abroad and is majoring in aerospace engineering.
And together, we are the co-founders of Boxit. Last semester, while I was vacating my on-campus dorm, I had a lot of extra items with me which I couldn't take back to Dubai, where I stay, due to traveling issues. And I'd end up disposing most of these items because the cost associated with storing them over the summer was around $250 for Storage Squad. At the last second, one of my friends offered to store some of my items for me for a price we both discussed. But that entire period was so mentally and physically exhausting for me that we've come up with this idea today to prevent that from happening to anyone else.
Storage is a huge problem all around the world, especially in the United States, for students because they cannot really pay for the pricey options available to them on campus. These pricey options are generally a monopoly, and they run an outdated pricing model which charges expensive prices for storage. For example, Storage Squad at Penn State is the only available option to students over here, and it's generally very expensive because they charge around $57 to store one piece of luggage. It's inconvenient because you cannot really store large furnitures with them, and once you've stored your items, it becomes inaccessible to you. They're also inflexible because they charge extra fee for insurance and also for missing an appointment with the storage staff.
Wouldn't it be great having an application at your fingertips with which you could customize your preferences, have better storage options, and also have opportunities to make money all at the same time? All of this while maintaining maintaining safety standards so customers have an ease of mind.
So our solution is Boxit. Boxit will be the Airbnb of storage. It will be a web-based platform where students can offer storage space to other students on campus. We will be different from other storage providers here on campus because we will make storage cheaper, more flexible, and convenient.
With Boxit, it's very simple to use. You go on the website, you search using filters such as location, price, duration, and other advanced filters. You review your listings, and you book whatever you like. With Boxit also, students can save money and hosts can make money. Student storage right now is a multi-million-dollar industry. There are over 5,000 universities in the USA and more than 23 million undergraduates enrolled in these institutions.
For security purposes, we will be using the same terms and conditions as Airbnb, such as background check, fines, security deposit, etc. We will also be providing an extra insurance premium for our users while they're storing their items with us.
Even though we call ourselves the Airbnb of storage, we strive to maintain our own brand identity, which is why, in contrast to Airbnb, our target audience will be divided into storage seekers and storage providers. Under storage seekers, we have students who will be doing study abroad and co-ops, which is probably the lowest demographic, and the highest demographic are the students who are international and out of states who will be traveling during the summer and will have to vacate their dorms. And finally, we also have students who will be doing, who will have to leave the campus due to some sort of urgent emergency.
For storage providers, we are targeting off-campus students who have the permission to store other students' belongings with them.
In terms of IT, we'll be incorporating features such as smart search engine, user and host rating system, online payment services between the user and the host, and advanced filters on our website.
Here is a prototype of our website with the potential listings and the features it will have in the future. When the host is deciding to offer a price to its users, our system will use the open source data learning software called Aerosolve, where we will suggest pricing to these storage providers based on the location and the demand of the storage space. In the future, we also intend on building an application which will enhance the user experience for our users.
From our analysis, our estimated revenue breakdown will include 15% transactional commission between the user and the host, our optional insurance premium for enhanced safety, which will be 15% based on the worth of the item stored. And finally, we'll have $30 per ad per month revenue on our website through student-targeted advertising, sorry.
So how is Boxit different from other competitors on campus? Well, Boxit is the first student-run and student-based storage site where demand will meet supply at any given point of time. With the use of simple listings and searching techniques, anyone can make an Boxit account with ease.
Moreover, with Boxit, you have the option to browse user and host profiles, maximize your convenience by exploring a diverse range of options, and also Boxit will be launched at Penn State, which has the largest alumni network in the world.
Thank you for listening to us, and we're now ready for your questions.
Whoops.
Thanks. Good presentation. Thank you. Have you thought about the insurance component? Because I can imagine that could be tricky given many of the students don't own, right? They have landlords or apartment managers. Right. And who's going to underwrite the insurance given that you haven't reached a ton of scale yet, et cetera? Can you give some more?
So from our research so far, for the insurance, number one, all properties which will be storing these luggages have an insurance placed in the beginning itself. So in the case of any sort of catastrophic damage, earthquake, natural disaster, your property gets on fire, obviously there will be an insurance on the property itself, so that will insure some of the items stored. However, we're still researching and trying to find companies who would want to collaborate with us to probably improve our insurance policy. Right now, obviously, we have the 15%. The user is the one who deems the worth of the items of their good before they store it, and then they have the 15% on that item. And if they pay that insurance, they will be reimbursed in case something happens to the item. And that will be in case the host is the one, host damages the item, or basically the condition of the item isn't as they prescribed in the beginning of the storage.
Yeah, I understand how it works. I was just asking if you've already identified an underwriter or a partner, or this is just a concept.
It's still in process.
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting comment about competition and storage facilities on campus. Mm-hmm. Have you considered storage facilities off campus, right? A lot of the self-store facilities that I feel like are cheaper pricing, right, from what you called out on a couple of items, like, storing a suitcase, $57, that seems pretty exorbitant, mm-hmm. actually. But have you looked at that from a competitive perspective, and have you considered that being a danger to being able to launch this?
Well, basically, like, we targeted students over here on campus so that they can store storage off campus. So Storage Squad generally charges around $57 to store a suitcase. So we calculated, and according to our calculations, they store around $10 per cubic feet for this, and we will also base our suggested pricing system based on cubic feet. So we want to reduce it to 25% of that price. So we will be charging around $7.5 per cubic feet, which will make it cheaper for the students, and then again more convenient for them.
And also just clarifying your question, I think you asked about other storage, self-storage units.
Yeah.
Storage Squad itself is a self-storage unit, so they have a warehouse outside of campus. So they basically have employees who work for their company, come in and schedule an appointment with you, which if you miss, by the way, you have to pay an extra fee. But they come in, schedule an appointment with you, and they take your items, and then they store it over a 3.5 month period, which is basically the entire semester. So in case you have to come to campus, you have to withdraw your items, you cannot. It's locked in that warehouse, so there's no option for you to do that.
So I guess what I'm trying to get is it feels like it's more of a convenience to be able to do it on campus and they handle it from the, okay,
right.
all right.
Because there's more flexibility. Once you're like, we're a marketplace, so getting the user and the host together to interact and be able to store items whenever they want to. So it's up to them to decide what time they want to meet up to book an appointment and stuff like that. So it's all based on convenience, and then again, it'll be cheaper for them as well.
Right.
So that's the thing we're basing it on.
Are you guys familiar with MakeSpace?
MakeSpace?
So MakeSpace is a startup. I know it operates in New York. I think it operates in a few other cities. But what they do is they come in, they take a photo of every object that you store with them. They have professional movers move it out, and then you can withdraw an item to any location through the photos that they've taken of the items. So I'm curious if you see that as a viable competitor or a viable option versus for handling it yourselves versus trying to turn it into a two-sided marketplace?
So I think our objective is to make a two-sided marketplace, and we are not very familiar with MakeSpace, but we are familiar with our main competitor right now, which is Stash, which is a California-based storage unit, which isn't very popular. It's not well known, but it has similar ideas as we do. However, with our whole business model, we're targeting students. It's a student-to-student kind of market. So when you come in as a freshman at Penn State, you really don't know if you don't really have a lot of friends outside of campus, and you really have less options available. So with the student-to-student market, not only are you able to maybe expand your friend circle, maybe meet some new people, get some advice from your seniors, but also you're able to maintain that market. And I don't really see how MakeSpace, from your explanation of it, is similar to our business model in any sense, because we our long-term goal is to expand to other universities as well. We want to keep it a student-student sort of thing, because this sort of problem exists in every university, where when you have to vacate your dorms in the summer, you really have less options. It's more complicated as you expand, because Penn State is a college town kind of a place, but that's what our objective is right now, just to make it a student-student and expand to more universities.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
You.
Right, so that is our amazing 6 teams for this competition today. Let's give them all a round of applause once again. Excellent job. We can tell that you put a lot of hard work into this, and we're so proud, that you've made it to this step. Before we move on and we talk about, what happens for deliberation and everything, I just wanted to give one last plug for an event that's going on at 6:30 p.m. today. It's really exciting. One of our judges here, Naeem, is actually going to be in Business Building Room 110, and he's going to be on a panel to discuss, various things about entrepreneurship. So I hope that all of you are able to attend that, once this is over for today. But now, I know we were talking about hard work. Everybody's putting in a lot of dedication, and one of the things that we like to do with this event is we like to invite people back, that have won in previous competitions and who can, provide some words of advice and can be our keynote speakers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite some keynote speakers to the front of the room from Team Sender, who was actually their last year's 2017 IdeaMaker winners. So let's welcome Devin, Tyler, Cole, and Neil here. And while they're speaking, I'll be back there with the judges, and we'll come back with some results. So let's give them a round of applause, everybody. Yeah, you can just use. Oh, you don't have any slides? Okay. All right, so we'll just leave it as black. And
hello. Hello. All right, I'm going to get us started here. So my name is Cole. team here won this competition last year with our idea Sender. It was basically a learning analytics platform meant to help both students and teachers. Neil's going to get more into that later, so I'm going to kind of leave it where it is. I'm going to talk about kind of the process of the competition, you know, how we came up with our idea, things like that. So actually entering this competition was kind of just our way to, you know, push ourselves a little bit. We really had no technical background experience aside from Neil. We're all business majors. So we had no big idea, and we kind of just wanted to take this and see how far we can go with it, I guess. So coming up with our idea was kind of interesting. We had no pre-planned idea like some of the pitches that were here today. So we actually decided to try and target some like problems in society that were kind of relevant to us. We broke it down into, basically, we categorized main industries that exist like healthcare, education, sports, things like that, and just focused on issues that we thought were kind of relevant to us rather than focusing on broader issues so we could really tackle the problem. And we focused on coming up with a solution rather than necessarily trying to come up with a cool product, because that was one of the main pieces of advice that we had gotten from all of our mentors and stuff, which was to focus on a solution, because that would really add more value rather than kind of just come up with a cool product and maybe fit a square peg into a round hole, something like that. So that's kind of how we came up with the idea. We had a really awesome experience, you know, getting to meet the judges and go out west and really just learn from a bunch of really smart people. So now I'm just going to pass it off to Neil to talk more about our idea.
So one of the main problems we wanted to tackle was students not raising their hands in class. So I'm sure everyone here can relate to that. When you're sitting in that chair in Cybertorium and there's 200 people in this classroom and you have your professor here going through their regular slides, you don't really want to pause that lecture. You don't want to ask a stupid question, whether it's anxiety or there's many reasons. We did a survey with like around 100 people, and I think 90% of people said, yeah, I've been in class and I had a question, I didn't raise my hand. And we basically proposed a 3-part solution of a mobile application, processing in the cloud, and a dashboard for professors to use, where students could pinpoint specific bullet points on the slides through the mobile application, and they could also ask their own questions through the application as well. And we would take all the student data, process it, and we had a nice dashboard with a lot of analytics for the professors so they could make database decisions on student learning. And this has been a huge trend in education, actually like looking at data. And it's funny because in my internship this past summer at Splunk, which is a data analytics company, I actually worked on a very similar education like technology problem where I was analyzing data in tech. So the market is out there and people are really interested in it. So we were really excited to work on a really interesting issue, and I think the judges really enjoyed our working on us with our product, and our mentor loved our product as well. His name is Todd, and he gave us a lot of advice, and just meeting people throughout this whole competition was a great experience.
So I'm Tyler. I'm going to talk a little bit about the experience we had after we won the competition. So our prize was a trip out to San Francisco to talk with some company executives from startups that are in the Bay Area. So the first one we went to is called Weebly, and if you're not familiar with Weebly, it's essentially a drag and drop business to make your own website. They make it really easy for you to build your own website if that's what you want to do. An interesting thing about Weebly is that all 3 of the co-founders were students at Penn State. They wrote the first code of Weebly in, I think it was 116 Beaver Hill. And that's the, so they gave us a tour of their facilities, and it's all the bells and whistles you kind of imagine when you think of a Facebook campus or a Google campus. You know, they have the gyms, the game rooms, the kitchens and meals 3 times a day. It was pretty crazy. It's nothing like you see out here on the East Coast because there's not as many startups. But after that, we got to have kind of a doors closed meeting with company executives, and we kind of just got to pick their brain and see how they got to where they are today, some of the failures they experienced. After that, we went over to Reddit and had kind of the same thing. They gave us a tour, and we got to sit down and have a doors-closed meeting with Steve Huffman. And we got to do the same thing and pick his brain, learn about some of his failures and some of the other companies that he's started. And he's kind of backed out of just based on the success that Reddit's had. But they did offer us some pretty cool advice. One of the cool things that the Weebly guy said was that 99.99% of startups don't succeed on their first try. And that's probably going to be the same thing for a lot of other people if you pursue a startup. But the difference between the ones that are successful and the ones that don't really go anywhere is that it's not going to work on the first try, it's not going to work on the second try, probably not going to work on the 40th try either, but that 41st try might gain your traction, that beta test might gain traction and really pick up. And that's how you can really keep going with your product. The other thing that we really enjoyed from this experience is that those companies, they go through months and years of planning and trial and error. What this allowed us to do was go through that entire process and from inception of idea to essentially a mock pitch to investors in just a matter of a month and a half, which was a pretty cool experience. So definitely encourage you guys to come out here and try this maybe next year.
Hey guys, I'm Devin. So I'll kind of talk about post that experience and what we took away. So obviously you're going to have, in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of great companies that have come through this and have ultimately done really successful, really cool things in the marketplace. Unfortunately, we weren't one of those teams. Ultimately, we decided not to pursue our idea further. And really what it came down to, and something that we learned on the trip, was you have to be extremely passionate about your idea, about your product, about your company. We had experienced the issues that we were trying to solve, but it wasn't something that we really had a passion for. Like Tyler talked about, we learned you're not going to succeed on your first time, you're not going to succeed on your second time. It'll be that 41st or 51st or 100th time you're trying. So we didn't really see the passion there to pursue and continue to accept those failures and work past them. So that was one of the big things we took away from the experience was, if you want to do something, make sure you're extremely passionate about it and be able to push through those failures. Secondly, throughout the experience, we did just kind of further our love and our passion for technology. Being able to network with guys that are working high level and really tech-related spaces was sweet. But now all four of us are kind of working in tech-related spaces. We have jobs working in that area. So that kind of gave us that further passion. And then lastly, I kind of learned, and this is more specifically, but I think we all kind of learned to step out of your box and do something different. We're all friends and we're kind of in the same fraternity, and we did this to kind of step out of our box. And me personally, and all of us really, we didn't have any experience doing this. In a month and a half, we made a pitch, and then next thing we knew, we were out in San Francisco talking to the CEO of Reddit. So it was kind of crazy in that sense. And we learned a ton doing that. Me personally, I know I used to be extremely afraid of public speaking, and I've actually passed out giving a speech before. So for me to be doing this, it's pretty insane. So that's just a huge growth opportunity, and being able to step out of my box with my teammates here and go out and meet CEOs of companies like Reddit and Weebly, be able to meet venture capitalists and big execs of companies like this is just really cool. So I encourage all of you to continue doing these things, continue to do things that are different than your peers are doing. So just find that passion and pursue it.
So I think they give us time for a Q&A if anyone has any questions or anything. I think the first thing we really wanted to know is how they got there, and I think the biggest question we were wondering, because when we won, we were really hot on this. We wanted to pursue it. We were going to do Launchbox next year. It did kind of eventually fade out, but when we went out there, we wanted to know what the next step was. Like, yeah, we have this, maybe this great idea. We have a little bit of traction with guys that have told us that it's a good idea, but where do we get a venture capitalist to invest in us? You know, we can't front the money. And they kind of gave us, an answer of just keep trying, keep networking, and that's what they pretty much gave us an opportunity to do. Obviously, they weren't, we weren't out there to make a pitch to them, but they were kind of telling us keep going after that and keep, pursuing it if that's really what you want to do.
Yeah, it was more so, I mean, we did try to kind of get a strategy of where to go, but it was also more so just getting an understanding of the mindset of like what you have to be like and what you have to be thinking to be able to get where they are. Like you said, trying to get past those failures. So that was another key thing, is just picking the brain of a guy that's got punched in the face hundreds of times and came out on the other end.
But they basically like put us in a room with all of those execs for like an hour or 2 hours, whatever, and said like, it was basically like an ask me anything. So like, if you had specific questions to ask them, they were more than happy to answer pretty much anything, whether it was specific or broad. So, what is someone else to say? Yeah.
I was wondering what you guys are doing now and what you gained from like the Penn State experience that you currently use.
Sure. So, like Devin said, we're no longer pursuing, sender our idea. But before this competition, honestly, I think Neil was the only one that was like genuinely interested in, working in like a tech space. I know, speaking for Devin and I as well, we kind of like, this competition kind of altered our career path a little bit. We're kind of, now we both accepted jobs like working at like the intersection of business and technology now. And who knows, maybe down the line we'll gravitate even more towards technology, but it's definitely like changed our career path. I don't know if anybody else wants to say something.
So I was kind of the anomaly of the group, I guess. So we went out there, and I've grown up on the East Coast my entire life, and kind of been right outside DC, where it's pretty cutthroat. And I love like the high pressure, high intensity environment of like a corporate office. And when we went out there, it's California, it's very laid back. And I was kind of taken aback by it, and it kind of hit me that I wanted to be in that corporate environment as opposed to a startup sort of environment. So that led me to, now I'm going to be working downtown DC. So kind of led me to that realization. All right, thank you guys.
I'll give you an intro, Nick.
It looks like all the labs are on.
Oh, are they? Oh, they are.
Do you want a real mic?
Give me a real mic. There we go. All right. So thank you so much to our keynote speakers. It's really great to hear from you. It's great to have you here. And just one of the things that we wanted to do before, we really got into a few words of advice from our judges here. And before we talk about the prizes and everything like that, what I wanted to do was introduce what is known as the Dave Hall Award. And the Dave Hall Award is something that was created by the IST Advisory Board. Basically, is that still going? It was created after the passing of someone who was a great colleague, a friend, a prior dean, somebody who really had an eye on innovation and who made sure that, we were doing everything that we could as a college, as a community, to really reach out into that space and to be the best that we could be. And that person was Dr. Dave Hall. He was a great friend of mine and also a great colleague of mine, and it was a pleasure to know him. And somebody in the audience tonight here, Nick Giacobbe, who's a professor here at the College of IST, has some nice words to say about this award and about Dave. And ultimately, we're going to present this award to the student team who best exemplifies collaboration and innovation across disciplinary areas. So without further ado, let's welcome Nick.
So first, I'd like to start off by thanking Allison Murphy and the Startup Committee for inviting me to say a couple of words about my friend and advisor and mentor, Dave Hall, for which this award is named. And I think we should probably take this out. Maybe can you help me out with that? Yeah. Okay, so before I go further, I also wanted to acknowledge Dave's wife, Beth McLaughlin, who's up there. She's joined us this evening. And without her being connected to the college and continue to be connected to the college, I'm not sure what we would all do. But thank you, Beth, for coming. For those of you who knew Dave, especially here in the college, you probably knew him because he was an administrator and his administrative work here in the college. I mean, after all, he was one of our deans. But Dave's academic career didn't start in this interdisciplinary space of IST. He started as an undergraduate in math and physics. And so Dave's field turned into this new field at the time of astronomy. And astronomy was in this interesting interdisciplinary space of math and physics and optics and putting together your own instruments. Later, when Dave was a graduate student here in astronomy at Penn State, where he did his master's and PhD, part of his work was to cross all of those different disciplines to bring about modern telescopes so that we can look deep into the stars. Dave was always interested in bringing things from different disciplines together. In his professional career, he worked on this thing called multi-sensor data fusion, bringing different sensors together of different types so that you could get a more complete picture of what was happening somewhere else. In the dozens of years that Dave worked developing these new systems for data fusion, he also developed this appreciation, that's not the right word, maybe even the love of working with different people from different disciplines. Because he knew that that different type of thinking that you get from working with somebody else from a discipline that's not yours is often where you can find the solution to interesting problems. And Dave really liked working with people, especially those who could just simply stand up, collaborate, work together, and do something to get something done. So you see, we've got lots of really, really smart people, especially in universities with our lovely little ivory towers of our different disciplines. But it's not until you can apply that knowledge to solve a real-world problem that you actually get the job done. So when I met Dave, personally, I was kind of lost. I was kind of, a little confused. And some might say that I was stuck in my own OODA loop. Those of you who know about little cognitive scientists know a little bit about that. I couldn't really break free, but what Dave did for me is what he did for a lot of people, and I didn't realize it then. So he opened a door for me, and then later he opened another door for me, and then later on he opened yet another door for me and said, Nick, you going to go through the door yet? And I never realized why he did that until I really, really started to know who he was. And I realized that Dave did that because that's what Dave does. So maybe it's because I was one of those weird interdisciplinary folks, one of those people who looked at the different disciplines of stovepipes that we have in the world and didn't see them as barriers, but I saw them as opportunities and these challenges that we could overcome and that we could tackle to address problems in interesting spaces. And that's what Dave really embodies in this award. And the Dave Hall Award for this interdisciplinary and interconnected kind of solution. So, without further ado, Megan, if you'd like to come up and we can announce the winner of the Dave Hall Award.
Thank you very much, Nick. So, the winner of the Dave Hall Award is Team Glow Up. So let's give them a round of applause. So Team Glow Up was selected for this award because of your diverse backgrounds in criminology, engineering, IST, math, combined with your enthusiasm and ability to show up to each event with focus on learning and improving. It exemplifies the spirit of the award. So congratulations to Team Glow Up. Okay, we're going to get a quick picture. All right, so now we come down to what we all came for here. Who won the IdeaMakers Challenge? Before we get into this discussion, I just wanted to ask the judges if they have any kind of feedback that they want to provide, any kind of general commentary. Go for it.
I was super impressed with all the teams. It's a cliche, but there really are no losers. I mean, you all took a lot of time out of your schedules being, full-time students to take on this challenge. So, I want to thank you all for really working together to try to solve some tough problems. I would say one thing that maybe I wish I heard more of was, talking about yourselves and your own achievements a little bit more, because at this stage, it's certainly about the idea, but it's really about the team, right? So just because you're young doesn't mean you can't brag about yourselves for 30 seconds and really, tell us why you're the team that's going to do it, why you're the team that's going to win in your respective space. And the other thing that I would mention is, timing, right? Some teams did a little bit better than others of kind of, it's a lot to get through in 5 minutes. I think we all can empathize with that. But, certainly on the Q&A, as judges, we want to, the reason we're firing so many questions at you, because we want to really dive as deep as we can in the 5 minutes that we get to ask questions. So I think, some teams maybe did a little bit better than others in, powering through our rapid fire questions. So just so we could get a little bit of a deeper insight. So maybe a little bit practicing on kind of Q&A, could help, the next go around.
I definitely mirror that praise. And on the same note about the presentations, my talk earlier today was on how to present and pitch startup ideas and give a presentation. So I would definitely recommend watching that and taking what you can over it. In that talk, I recommend seeing a couple of other founder pitches or founder talks and what those look like. And those can be incredibly helpful in shaping up and clarifying the way that you pitch, the way that you present, the way that you handle and approach questions. And it makes coming to competitions like this much easier, but it also, that's how you then grow the team, raise investment, close customers.
And I'd like to just finish it off and just say, this is the beginning, right? So, just because, there are 5 teams going home. Well, actually, there's top 3 and bottom 3. And just because you might be in one of the teams that doesn't place, that doesn't mean stop doing what you're doing. Keep going, keep the energy moving on it. You all have something very interesting and very unique, and if you can truly hit the market and get that demand taken care of and drive the revenue, sustain your company, you have a real opportunity. And I would say right now, as a student, is the best time to do it. Room and board is covered. You've got hopefully some free time. You obviously have free time to build this up. Once you graduate, life becomes much more complex very quickly. So in hindsight, that's something I wish I would have really latched onto a lot sooner. So keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, judges. It's always wonderful to have people from our alumni to come in and to share their insight and to really help in these events, because I think that there's a really enriching experience for everybody here. So thank you very much, and let's give them a round of applause, guys. All right, so finally, we're getting down to the final 3. We're going to talk about who the winners are. We're going to start with the 3rd place winner in this competition, and when we call your name, we want you to stand up so we can, clap and be excited. Okay, so for 3rd place, we have Maadi Babu. Great job, great job. All right, for 2nd place, we have Kajenzi. Stand up. Great job. All right, and drum roll, everyone. For 1st place, we have HemoGo. Or HemoGo, sorry. Everybody's got these interesting names. HemoGo. Thank you, guys. Great job to our winners. Great job to everybody who's participated. just so you know, for the prizes, in case anybody wanted to know what these are, prizes are third place team each will receive $75 Amazon gift cards as an appreciation for all your hard work in the challenge, so congratulations. And the prize for both first and second place is a paid trip to the GrowCo Entrepreneurship Conference held in New Orleans this summer. So you're going to be contacted by the director of events with more information very soon. So thank you very much to everybody for coming out tonight. Thanks for bearing with me. I know Allison was supposed to be here tonight, and I hope she's feeling a lot better. Here's a list of people who helped make this possible. And thanks to everybody for coming out tonight. So thank you. If all of the teams can come down to the front of the room, we want to take some pictures to, remember this day. All right. Thanks, guys.